We are delighted to have with us this morning to deliver the message Michael Milward, who is from Beardy's and Okamassis Cree Nation, which is near Duck Lake, Saskatchewan, just north of Saskatoon. Michael is the son of a residential school survivor. While he does attest to having much lived experience, he is grateful to Creator for guiding him towards the life that he has today. After graduating from the University of British Columbia, Michael began a career in supporting Indigenous students for post-secondary education, first at UBC and then at Mount Royal University in Calgary. Michael is two-spirit. Having moved from Calgary to Toronto with his husband almost 10 years ago, Michael began working as the office manager for the physician-in-chief at CAMH, and then as operations manager for Shakabi Makawa at CAMH, which is a program for achieving health, justice, and wellness for Indigenous people in Ontario. Today, Michael works as Director of Programs and Services for Anishnawbe Health Toronto. At AHT, he works in collaboration with the AHT staff on many innovative initiatives for Indigenous people, to which he will now speak. And may I say, as Michael is coming forward, following Michael's remarks, there will be a moment of silence to allow each of us a period of time to just process and pray on what Michael has said.
Thank you, Jim, for the introduction. I'm hoping to speak primarily about two things. The first being that I believe the best people to help Indigenous people are Indigenous people themselves. And the other thing is the topic of reconciliation can be controversial for many Indigenous people. The reason why is reconciliation is about repairing or restoring what was formerly a friendly relationship. A lot of Indigenous people don't feel the relationship between our people and colonists was ever friendly. So it's something hard to negotiate. But rather, the definition that I prefer to use is working together so that we can collaborate on different points of view or beliefs. And I'll speak to that more later. I had some speaking notes with me, but I chose to leave them down there. I think what I'll do today is speak more from my heart and more about my personal experience, as well as the work that we're doing at Anishnawbe Health Toronto. So next Saturday coming up, my husband and I are going back to Calgary to spend time with my parents to help them celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. And so my parents are very much on my mind right now, and especially my mother. My mother was part of a family with 18 children, and 3 of them were adopted, and they grew up on the reserve of Beardy's in Saskatchewan. And my mother and many of her brothers and sisters were in residential school. So I remember as a child, my brothers and sisters would ask my mom about her experience in residential school, and she wouldn't ever really respond. She never spoke of the abuse that she experienced in residential school. And but we knew it happened, and much of the abuse was quite severe. And the reason why we knew it happened is because we saw the outcomes and how it impacted my mom, as well as many of her brothers and sisters. Within my extended family, we've dealt with suicide, addictions, the breakdown of the family unit. Many things have gone a long way to really affect my family. I can speak to as well that the experiences of my mother and my family has impacted me as well. Because some of the abuse that they experienced was passed to me by family members. And I remember for a very long time kind of wondering about the notion of intergenerational trauma. I felt I didn't really understand for a very long time what that really meant. And I remember when the unmarked graves were being found in Kamloops, I was here and my mom was back home, and I was uncertain how to reach out to my mom. What could I do to help her through that time? Because I knew that it would be a painful thing for her to watch on TV as she watched the news. And but what I found one morning, I was in the shower and I started to think about those children that had been buried. And in the shower, I started to bawl. And about a week after that, I was talking to an Indigenous artist here in Toronto. Her name is Lisa Boyman, who had done some work for us. And I reiterated that experience of weeping in the shower. And our conversation became quite emotional, like it is now. And what I found so interesting about Lisa's comments is she said to me, the reason why you wept in the shower as you did is because you were in water at the time, and you were reminded that you were reminded of the time when you were in your mother's womb. And you felt you were in a safe place to express your emotions. From that experience, I know what intergenerational trauma means because it's in with me. It's part of my makeup, it's part of my DNA. And those memories have come from my mother and her family as well, and come into me. And it's something I do carry with me. It took a lot of hard work to overcome my issues that I carried. I have been homeless. I have been incarcerated. And with the help of my parents and my mother, and with elders and traditional people, I've been able to come through it and come to a better place where I could live a good life. About 10 years ago, my husband and I decided we would move to Toronto from Calgary. And remember saying goodbye last to my parents. We met them in a mall in Calgary parking lot and said our final goodbye before we started driving to Toronto. And I remember my mom saying to me, don't cry. When we drove across the country to come here, it was a very exciting time. You know, we were very much looking forward to having new experiences in a new part of the country. And but when we finally arrived in Toronto 4 days later, we moved into our apartment, and our furniture and stuff were still coming by a moving van. So here we were in an empty apartment with our camping gear. We brought our camping gear with us, and I remember sitting down and having a bit of a meltdown because very suddenly it dawned on me that we left our family and friends behind. But what's important for me to remember is I always feel guided by Spirit no matter what. And even though some of our experiences have not been positive, I feel I'm here for a reason today. And shortly after moving to Toronto, I did start working for CAMH. And at CAMH, part of that experience was working with some amazing Indigenous people. I worked for Rennie Linkletter as part of Anishnawbe. And in that program, we worked together with a fully Indigenous team in developing culturally safe practices for addressing mental health and addictions. I also worked with an elder. Her name is Diane Longboat. Her office was next door to mine at CAMH. And I'm grateful to Diane because she has, I look at her as a grandmother, and she has invited me to participate in ceremony. Diane has a lodge near Six Nations, and being able to go there to participate in ceremony has been really important to me. I remember one time I was reading the Toronto Star and I saw an article there with a picture of a health center for Indigenous people, and that was Anishnawbe Health. So the article was really, the picture was really a rendering of the new health center because they were working towards breaking ground so that the construction of the new health center could begin. And I saw that article when I was still at CAMH, and I remember thinking to myself, I need to put my ear to the ground because when they do open that health center, they will need to hire staff. And I made it a goal at that point that I would eventually become a staff member here at Anishnawbe Health. And sure enough, about 2 years after seeing that article, I learned of an opportunity as Director of Special Projects at Anishnawbe Health, and I was successful in the application and the interview. And interestingly enough, Diane Longboat happened to be part of the interview process, and I wasn't aware of that going in. And when I saw her on Zoom as being one of the people conducting the interview, I remember quite clearly Diane was smudging on camera. And after the interview was done, I called Diane immediately and I said, "Did you know I was interviewing?" And she said, "Of course I did." And then she told me, I was smudging for you. And I remember feeling immediately relaxed when I saw that she was doing that. And ultimately I was hired and now report to Joe Hester at Anishnawbe Health. All of these folks that I mentioned, Diane, Rennie, Joe, I'm grateful to them. They're all role models to me. They're all elders to me, and they've all had such an amazing impact on my life. And what I would really like to mention as well is the things that we are working on at Anishnawbe Health. I'm really grateful for the experience there, because I work with 100 staff, all of whom are just amazing people. All of them are just so impassioned about the work they're doing for Indigenous people, for the health and well-being of Indigenous people. And I've been able to participate and contribute in a number of projects that I feel are quite innovative and will be quite transformative as well. The one thing that makes Anishnawbe Health quite unique from other health centers is that we integrate both Western and traditional healing practices for our people. So we do employ physicians and psychiatrists, nurse practitioners, nurses, and along with those staff, we do also have traditional healers as well as Shkabewis, or traditional helpers. And I'm a client as well of Anishnawbe Health. I always say I have a rather long laundry list of health ailments, including arthritis and diabetes. And I remember coming to Anishnawbe Health for the first time a number of years ago before I became employed, and when on my first appointment, the health practitioner or the nurse had a smudge bowl on the examination table, and I remember I kept saying to her, "Really, you guys offer smudge?" I really couldn't believe that was available, and because it wasn't part of my healthcare experience in the past when I would go to hospital or see a physician in his clinic. So the other aspect that is quite, that I'm grateful for at Anishnawbe Health as well is we do offer ceremony to clients. So we do at our Gerrard Street location have a sweat lodge behind the building, and clients and staff are invited to participate in sweats regularly. And also I do meet with a healer from time to time for my own health and well-being, and I find those experiences just so helpful to me. I'll just briefly describe the experience. So obviously when we do go see a healer, the intention is that you give tobacco to the healer. And what's really important to mention is that tobacco is something that you carry for a while before you see the healer. And so I prepared the tobacco and put it into a tobacco tie about a week before seeing him. And I had that with me all the time that week prior. And so when I went into my appointment, we spoke about a number of things related to my health, and had a bit of a conversation. And then at one point during that appointment, I gave my tobacco to the healer, and then he took that tobacco and put it in his pipe, and he smoked it. And then shortly afterwards, he would drum and sing with the help of the Ashkabewis that was there. And that was when everything flowed out of me. Everything that I was carrying was coming out at the same time while I listened to him and drum and sing. And when he was done, he shared a vision that he had about me while he smoked the pipe. And I won't go into that, but I'll just let you know that it was extremely helpful for me to hear what he had to say about that. As all of us know, across the street at Anishnawbe Health at Gerard Street in Allen Gardens, there is a homeless encampment. And what we find is that many of our clients do come across the street to AHT to look for help from that encampment. And I am grateful to Joe Hester, because one of the things he's done last year is he sent a letter to the City of Toronto asking them not to clear the encampment because there have been experiences in the past within the city where encampments have been cleared, but unfortunately there was no option available to the homeless people that were there. You know, no alternative housing, no transitional housing made available to them. But what that resulted in is really a migration of homeless people from that park, wherever they were, to different parks throughout the city, such as Allen Gardens. So AHT has been in a really great spot in being able to provide help to those folks, the homeless folks. And we give out food cards quite regularly if they need food. We had a meeting that was catered a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of leftovers, so all the meeting attendees took plates of food across the street to the folks living in the Allen Gardens. We have an extensive housing program as well. We have a team of about 6 that actually work very hard. It's a really active program and draws a lot of resources from within the staff to meet those challenges of homelessness amongst our clients. I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, what we are really looking forward to, though, is at the new build for the new health center. Construction is actually moving very quickly now. We broke ground for the new health center a year ago from June, actually a year ago to this month, and they have built all the floors of the health center and are doing drywalling and painting now, so things are moving at a very fast pace. And we will be moving into the new health center in December. Currently, we do have 3 sites with approximately 100 staff total, and we are faced with a rather daunting project of moving everybody and our equipment to the new center in December. What we're really looking forward to, though, is the design of the health center is in consideration of the beliefs and values of Indigenous people. So if you do happen to see the new health center, it has rounded corners in many places. We've done away with rooms that look like boxes or rectangles. That was something that was quite important to us. At the front of the health center, you'll notice there's a bit of a silo as part of the build, and in that silo is a healer room on each floor, and each of the rooms is circular. And right now we are about to engage an Indigenous artist so that within each of the healing rooms there will be a specific theme in the build. So for example, one healer room will represent a sweat, so it'll have the frame of the sweat. Another one will have more of a structure that looks like a teepee. And we also will have at the new health center behind is a ceremonial space where the sweat lodge will be, and we'll be able to conduct ceremony. So all of us staff at AHT are looking so forward to being there. The way we describe it is the health center is about making a place for Indigenous people in the city. And after the health center is completed, the construction company will start working on the buildings and structures around it. So really, we're going to end up with an Indigenous hub and a partner organization called Milward, which is for Indigenous training and education for employment. Will be actually next door to the health center. And then behind the health center will be affordable housing. There will be an Indigenous restaurant on site. There is a part of the hub that is a legacy building, so the restaurant will be within. We will have offices available to other Indigenous organizations within the hub as well, and then there is a condo development. The condo development has enabled AHT to come into the project debt-free, so we are moving in without a mortgage. Everything has been paid in full, and that was an important piece to the project, that we're able to maintain and sustain our programming without having to worry about finances. I wanted to go back to my statement earlier about the best people that can help Indigenous people are Indigenous people. When I think about my life's experiences, I may have already said, I'm so grateful to the elders and traditional people and to my parents and my family for the guidance that they've given me in my life. I honestly can say I would never be here today, and I truly do feel guided by Spirit. I feel He was, or the Creator was with us when we drove across the country to be here, and it was all meant for a reason. And one of the things I was asked to mention today is how could the church help Anishnawbe Health in the things they're trying to do for Indigenous people. And one of the things I would like to mention is please advocate for and support Indigenous people in helping themselves. When you hear Indigenous people speak about the issues they're trying to address, please just listen and take it in and support us in that work. That's really all I would like to ask today. I think that's everything. I hope I haven't gone into overtime, but thank you for allowing me to speak today. Thanks.